Money has always been sold to you as freedom, but Machiavelli would smirk and call it by its real name, control. Because the truth is, money doesn't just shape your choices, it decides who gets to make them. And while most people chase it blindly, the rich, those who've already won the game, play by rules they'll never explain. Rules that aren't written in books or motivational speeches, but carved in silence. Today, we're going to break that silence. The first brutal truth is this: money is not earned, it's transferred. The rich don't create wealth out of thin air. They position themselves so that money flows toward them naturally. Most people think they're being paid for effort, but effort means nothing if it isn't tied to leverage. A man digging a hole for 10 hours works harder than the one who sells him the shovel, but the shovel maker gets rich. Machiavelli would call this the art of placement. Power belongs not to the one who sweats, but to the one who stands where all the sweat collects. The rich understand this so deeply that they design entire systems, businesses, brands, networks, to ensure that every transaction feeds their position. This brings us to the second truth. Money doesn't change people, it exposes them. The rich don't suddenly become ruthless because they're rich. They were already calculating long before the world noticed. Money simply removes the mask. That's why Machiavelli warned against trusting appearances. A poor man who seems kind may simply lack the power to be cruel. Once he gets money, you see his real nature. This is why the wealthy rarely reveal vulnerability. They know the more you see their emotions, the more leverage you have over them. They hide their intentions behind generosity, investments, and quiet smiles, because real control thrives in mystery. The third truth: poverty is not the opposite of wealth, it's the default. You were born into a system designed to drain you. Machiavelli would tell you that rulers don't maintain control by force alone, but by illusion. And the greatest illusion of all is that everyone has an equal shot. The rich keep the poor loyal by dangling hope like a carrot. Promotions, bonuses, side hustles. These keep you chasing, never questioning. Because the moment you stop running and actually look at the game, you'll realize it's rigged for one outcome: dependency. That's why Machiavelli would tell you, never fight the system head on. Learn its rules, then twist them until they serve you. Now here's the fourth truth, the one that stings. Money obeys confidence, not need. The world doesn't reward those who deserve. It rewards those who act like they do. A confident man with half the skill will always out-earn a timid genius. Machiavelli would call it the power of perception. When people believe you have control, they give it to you willingly. That's why the rich invest in presentation, clothes, speech, posture, silence. They understand that money flows toward authority, and authority begins in the mind. The moment you beg the world for money, you lose it. But the moment you behave as if you already command it, it finds its way back. The fifth truth: emotions make terrible accountants. Most people spend emotionally and justify logically. They buy not what they need, but what makes them feel seen, respected, envied. The rich do the opposite. They spend for power. When they buy luxury, it's rarely for pleasure. It's for signaling dominance, attracting opportunities, or creating trust in their image. Machiavelli would see this as psychological warfare. If your spending doesn't build your influence, you're feeding someone else's empire. The poor chase status to feel rich. The rich use status to stay rich. The sixth truth is more uncomfortable. The poor are taught morality. The rich are taught strategy. You're told greed is evil, ambition is arrogance, and self-interest is shameful. But Machiavelli would laugh at such conditioning, because morality, in the hands of the powerless, becomes a leash. The rich understand that every moral code in society, from religion to work ethic, was designed to keep the masses obedient. They know when to appear virtuous, but behind closed doors, they act in pure calculation. They'll donate to charity publicly, while exploiting tax loopholes privately. They'll preach hard work to you, but quietly multiply their wealth through leverage, timing, and other people's labor. Morality is their costume, strategy is their skin, and finally, the seventh truth, the one that ties all others together. Money doesn't buy freedom, it buys options, and options are power. The poor think freedom means having no boss. The rich know freedom means being your own ruler, having the ability to walk away from anything or anyone without fear. Machiavelli would say true power is the ability to choose restraint when others are forced to react. A man with money doesn't argue, he withdraws. He doesn't chase love, he selects it. He doesn't seek validation, he controls who gets it. That's why the rich protect their time more than their cash. They know time is the only currency that multiplies when invested correctly. But there's a hidden layer beneath these 7 truths, something even most rich people never articulate. It's the realization that money is spiritual. It's not just about numbers, it's about energy flow, belief, discipline, detachment. Machiavelli understood that attachment breeds weakness. If you need money to feel worthy, you'll always be manipulated by those who have more of it. But if you see money as a tool, a servant to your will, it becomes a reflection of your control. That's why true wealth isn't loud. It's calm, silent. It moves like water, always flowing toward those who've learned to stay still, while others panic. The poor think the game of money is about speed, how fast you can earn, invest, or multiply them. Rich know it's about position, how long you can hold when others fold. Patience is their weapon. They don't chase waves, they build dams. When the economy burns, they expand. When the crowd buys, they sell. Machiavelli would call this the art of timing. Power belongs to those who can wait until emotion exhausts the masses. Because in money, like in politics, chaos is never a threat. It's an opportunity for those who stay composed. And yet, here's the paradox Machiavelli would whisper to you. The moment you stop worshipping money, you begin to attract it. Because detachment is the ultimate form of control. The rich don't chase, they magnetize. They operate from abundance, not desperation. They believe they'll win, and that belief bends reality around them. Money is drawn to order, and order begins in the mind. So while the world screams for quick riches and shortcuts, the Machiavellian mind plays the long game. Less emotion, more precision. But here's what makes these truths dangerous. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. Every transaction, every job, every relationship begins to reveal its power structure. You'll notice how people use generosity as bait, how praise is a leash, how money moves quietly in directions that favor confidence over fairness. You'll see how your worth is never truly measured in currency, but in control. Control over your emotions, your attention, your reactions. That's when you realize money was never the goal. Power was. Money is just its shadow. And the moment you learn to master that shadow, to bend it, stretch it, and use it as camouflage, you stop being a player in the game. You become the one writing its rules. The moment you start to think like this, something shifts. You stop chasing money the way the powerless do, with hunger and haste, and you begin to move like a strategist, slowly, intentionally, detached from outcome, but deeply aware of timing. That's the mental shift Machiavelli would call the transformation from servant to sovereign. And this is where most people fail. They want the results of power while keeping the habits of dependence. They want wealth, but fear being disliked. They want freedom, but crave approval. They want abundance while obeying scarcity. You can't have both. The rich know this. That's why they shed emotional attachments like armor before a war. You see, money doesn't respond to morality. It responds to momentum. When you move decisively, without hesitation, the world opens pathways that weren't visible before. The rich make faster decisions because they know every choice is a test of belief. They don't need to think about it for days. They already trained their instinct through repetition. Machiavelli would say, hesitation is the language of the powerless, because in every pause, someone else acts, decides, and profits. But there's another brutal truth buried deeper, one that explains why most people will never escape the grind. Money flows toward clarity. The rich know exactly who they are, what they're doing, and what game they're playing. The poor drift. They work hard, but without strategy, without an angle, without understanding how their role fits into the larger machine. They confuse motion for progress. Machiavelli would tell you, the man who doesn't define his direction becomes a weapon for someone who already has. Every hour you spend without clarity, you're helping someone else build their empire. And when you finally grasp that, you understand the next rule, that silence is currency. The rich don't announce their moves, they conceal them. Because the moment you speak, you surrender leverage. Information is the purest form of capital, and the fewer people who know your plan, the less interference you face. That's why the most powerful people appear mysterious, not because they're trying to be, but because their silence multiplies their options. Machiavelli would call this strategic opacity. Let others wonder. Confusion in your opponents is interest on your intelligence. But perhaps the cruelest truth of all, the one even the rich struggle to face, is that wealth is not about accumulation. It's about control. Control over yourself first, and others second. If you can't control your impulses, your comfort seeking, your desire to impress, then you'll always be rich for a moment and poor for a lifetime. Machiavelli understood this deeply. The greatest rulers were not the ones who conquered others, but those who first conquered their own nature. Money amplifies everything you are. If you're weak, it makes you reckless. If you're strong, it makes you untouchable. Here's what the rich do differently. They use boredom as a weapon. While others chase excitement, they repeat the same systems day after day, until those systems print results automatically. They know that mastery lives in monotony. Machiavelli would have admired this discipline, the ability to endure repetition without losing vision. Because power doesn't come from intensity, it comes from consistency. The man who can delay gratification longer than others eventually owns the game. Now look around your world, and you'll see it everywhere. The poor seek stimulation. The rich seek structure. The poor chase opportunities. The rich create them. The poor think wealth is about hard work. The rich know it's about removing friction. Every system they build removes one decision from their day, one dependency from their future. Machiavelli would have called it systematic dominance. Control your routine, and you control your reality. There's another layer here, a psychological one. Money is a mirror that reflects your level of self-trust. The reason most people can't hold on to it is because deep down, they don't believe they deserve it. They sabotage themselves through guilt, impulsive spending, or fear of judgment. The rich, on the other hand, see money as neutral energy. It doesn't make them good or bad. It just magnifies their reach. That neutrality is their secret weapon. When you detach morality from money, you stop chasing validation and start building strategy. Machiavelli would say that if you want to command wealth, you must learn to think like a ruler, not a merchant. The merchant asks, "What can I get?" The ruler asks, "What can I control?" It's not about greed, it's about order. The rich build empires because they think in layers, assets that pay for assets, systems that reinforce systems, people who protect power. They don't just buy things, they buy stability. Every dollar they spend has a job. Every investment is a soldier. And here's the paradox that separates the truly wealthy from the merely rich. The rich accumulate, but the powerful redistribute strategically. They don't hoard money, they deploy it. They know idle capital is a sleeping soldier. When they spend with precision, on leverage, relationships, influence. They donate when it builds image. They invest when it buys control. They hire when it saves time. To the Machiavellian mind, every dollar must move with intention. because motion without purpose is weakness. But there's something even deeper Machiavelli would whisper in your ear if he were alive today. You can't truly master money until you stop needing it to define you. The rich have already detached from that illusion. They use money as a language, not as an identity. They know that the man who needs money to feel powerful will always be a slave to those who print it. But the man who sees money as a tool, something to extend his will, not feed his ego, becomes ungovernable. That's the final form of power, to hold everything, yet depend on nothing. So if you really want to live by Machiavelli's philosophy, don't chase wealth for comfort or luxury. Chase it for sovereignty, for the ability to move through life without compromise, to walk away when others can't, to speak truth when others are silent, to choose peace when others are bought by chaos. Because in the end, money is not about numbers, it's about nerve. And the one who controls his nerves controls the world.